Hi everyone, David Ryle with Trellis for Tomorrow again, and we are at the garden at Eagleview. Going to do a brief garden check, just a virtual garden check, talking about how to check on your crops, how to care for them during this time. We're going to talk about three things that are really important this time of year. So in your garden, you're going to want to take a look at all of your crops, just kind of assess how they're doing. You're going to want to look and see if seems like they're getting established well, if they're showing signs of new growth. So we're going to take a close look at a few of these crops and talk about what I see, and three things that you want to kind of be on the lookout for or practice doing during this time. Okay, so I have taken some time to remove at least part of the row cover that was over this bed, which I will replace when I'm done. But in order to take a closer look at these crops, I removed part of it just to see how things are doing. So what we're looking at here is head lettuce, which was transplanted into the soil in the spring, and it's been here for about 2 or 3 weeks now, and we're just kind of taking a look and seeing how is it doing. So I can tell you, because I helped put these in, that when they went in, they were nowhere near as big as this. So when the first thing that catches my eye is a lot of this new lush green growth in the center of the plants. That tells me that the plants are getting established nicely, that they're finding the nutrients that they need in the soil, and they're starting to grow, which is exactly what you want to see this time of year, which is late April. The second thing that catches my eye is the yellowing of some of these leaves. Yellowing in the leaves is called chlorosis, and it's an indicator that the plants are going through some kind of stress. It can be overwatering, it can be underwatering, it can be disease related, it can be pest related. So chlorosis in and of itself is just the plant telling you that something's wrong, that it doesn't like. And then it's on to a good gardener or a good farmer to try to discern what is it that is that's not right. Now, in this instance, there's a couple things that tell me exactly what this chlorosis is related to. Some of this is just from experience, but some of it is actually indicated in what I'm seeing when I look at the plant. Where I see the yellowing of the leaves is all the original leaves, all of these older leaves, which were first part of the first seedling when it first went in. So what I chalk this stress up to is called transplant shock. And it is the shock that the seedling goes through when it comes out of a greenhouse and it goes into the ground. There's usually some amount of transplant shock, and that causes the original leaves to get sort of stressed out. But the fact that there's all this lush inner growth that I can see the plant is really getting established tells me that everything is okay. What you can do for these plants and any other seedlings where you see the oldest outer leaves starting to yellow, you can actually pinch those off. This is kind of like doing the plant a little bit of a favor. When certain leaves start to show signs of stress and weariness, you can see I'm just kind of pinching these off with my fingernails, getting those off. What that's going to do is allow the plant to use its energy and really direct it where it needs to go, which is at this new growth. It's not going to waste any more energy on these older leaves. This can go into your compost pile, or you can feed your rabbits with it, but you're going to save your plant a lot of energy by removing these older yellowing leaves. Now, when I see yellowing leaves happening in the new growth, that usually is an indication of nutrient deficiency or over or under watering when you see yellowing going on throughout the entire plant. When it's in the oldest leaves, it's not much of an issue. So this is sort of tied to the first thing that you can do, which we're going to talk about in just a second, for your garden this time of year, which is sanitation. So in mid-spring, after the seedlings have gone in the ground and you're not yet harvesting, one of the things that you can spend a good amount of time doing is just related to what's called sanitation. Just keeping the plants as clean as possible, keeping the beds as clean as possible, picking off those yellowing leaves, picking up any debris in and around the plants, keeping the beds clean. This is one of the things that starts in the spring and it kind of carries through the whole year. You're not doing a lot of weeding right now, which is really nice. If you do have weeds in the beds, you want to get those out. You want to keep your bed as clean as possible. But part of that cleaning, part of that sanitation is removing these yellowing leaves, the older leaves, the stuff that's not doing as well. Just kind of cleaning the plants up is kind of taking that one step of getting them where they need to be. So sanitation is a huge thing that you can do for your garden this time of year, even though there's not any harvesting to be done. That's kind of the first step. It's maybe even an early harvest. You can eat it or feed it to your rabbit or try to feed it to your dog. My dog just spits them out. But yeah, sanitation is the first thing that you can be doing this time of year. So after sanitation, the next thing that you can be doing for your crops is cultivation. We're taking a look at these collard greens, which you can tell are doing exceptionally well. Lots of new growth. Not very much yellowing of the leaves, just a little bit on the outside, but nothing really significant. Little bit of bug damage here. I think somebody snuck in underneath the row cover. But I've also got my cultivator tool here, which has sort of a spade side and the cultivator side. Any tool that has these types of tines on it is ideal for cultivation. So in addition to sanitation, removing the outer yellow leaves, cultivating, making sure that the soil is nicely broken up all throughout the bed is a huge thing that you can do. You're basically aerating the soil, improving drainage. You're breaking up any weeds that are just getting started. So taking time this time of year to cultivate your beds is something that can make a huge difference for these guys getting established and really growing. So the third thing that you can do for your garden during these mid-spring months before you're really harvesting anything is irrigation. We've talked about sanitation and cultivation. Well, now we're talking about irrigation. Now the garden here at Eagle View has a drip tape irrigation system, which is a fantastic way. It's a very efficient way of delivering water to the root zone of the crops. Whenever you're using a sprinkler system or overhead watering, you're introducing water onto the leaves of the plants, and that's one of the ways that plants get sick most often. So a drip tape irrigation system is a great way to go. There's no wrong way to irrigate your crops, which just has to do with watering your crops. But the drip tape irrigation system is a great system. In terms of overwatering and underwatering, what you want to do when you're checking your soil and checking your garden is you want to dig down a couple inches. You want to reach down in there with your hands, get those good germs on yourself, and you want to basically squeeze that soil together. And if it holds together like in one big clump, and it doesn't easily break apart when you prod at it, that's an indicator that the soil has a good amount of moisture in it. If it does not clump together at all, it just kind of stays separate. If we're to take some of the surface soil right here and try to clump it, it's not really holding together because it's very dry on the surface. But 2 inches down, that kind of moisture content, as we're seeing over here, is exactly what you want to see at that depth. If when you squeeze it at that depth, that 2 inches down, it's like a sponge with water dripping through your fingers, you are overwatering. So the target is 2 inches down, soil holding together very nicely without a lot of excess water coming out. That's usually an indicator that your water's right on target. Now during these very rainy spring weeks and months in southeast Pennsylvania this spring, you want to be watching your irrigation. You want to be really mindful about your water, and if you do have a drip tape irrigation system on a timer, that's really where the rain delay function on your timer can make a big difference. If you're hand watering or using a sprinkler system, obviously you can back off when you know that rain is coming. But there is a function on these timers that we install which has a rain delay, which is really just pushing the plus button. We know that rain is actually coming tomorrow, and that'll give us a 24-hour rain delay. Pushing that plus button again gives us a 48-hour rain delay, which is what we're going to do because we know that we've got some serious rain coming tomorrow. So I'm going to use that rain delay. The timer will shut off for the next 2 days, and then after the 48-hour passes, it'll kick back on. But you want to be mindful not to overwater the crops. If you're getting a lot of rain, you want to back off your irrigation. So it may not seem like there's a lot to do, but as we've discussed, between cultivation, sanitation, irrigation, There's actually quite a lot to watch for and to do during these spring weeks and months leading up to our first harvest, which brings us to really the fourth thing, which is observation. There's not just plenty to do in caring for the soil and caring for the plants during this time, but just kind of keeping a close eye on your crops during these weeks and months leading up to the first harvest can go a long way in helping them get established. You can kind of keep your finger on the pulse of the garden, making sure that nothing is kind of going off the rails. If you do start to see stress in the plants or chlorosis, that yellowing of the leaves throughout the plants, that's usually a good time to reach out to us and let us know what's going on, and we can help with that. But just because there's no harvesting to do and not a lot of weeding to do doesn't mean these spring weeks and months don't afford us opportunities to take care of our garden friends. So I encourage you to get out there, keep us posted with how things are going in the garden, and happy gardening.